views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Next 2 hours, be prepared to open your mind to the edgier side of the metaphysical world. The topics discussed may prove disturbing to some, but are all a part of the world in which we live. Welcome to the Rev and Witch Show. Listener discretion is advised.
And welcome, everyone, to the Reverend Wood Show. I am, of course, the Reverend Tim Shaw. Our co-host tonight is the most alluring and beautiful witchy Marla Brooks. And tonight we are hosting The Nature of Evil 2. And joining us are a group of distinguished and fascinating guests who are very knowledgeable on this subject. They have either themselves had their own brushes with evil, or in some cases, they've been looked upon as evil themselves. Now, tonight we're going to have demonologist John Zaffis, who is actually filming on location for his sci-fi show Haunted Collector, and he'll be joining us in hour 2 because of filming conflicts. In the meantime, we're going to get things started. We have one of my favorite friends out there, publisher, author, and all-around Satanist, Corvus Nocturnum. How you doing, Corvus?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Later on, we're going to have Stacy Jones, who is a haunted survivor. They call her the Ghost Cop. Her son did actually suffer a possession. She's at the academy doing some extra training. Hopefully she'll be here tonight before the end of the show. And her story is really, really fascinating. And lastly, of course, is the paranormal founder of Para X, the handsome, the man, the myth, the legend, our own Dave Jones. Hey, Dave, how you doing?
Hey, Tim and Marlon Corvus, how you doing tonight?
Just another day.
Well, as Tim mentioned, each of our guests has either had brushes with evil or might be considered evil. As a demonologist, John Zaffis has had his fair share of demonic encounters. Corvus Nocturnum, by virtue of the fact that he's a Satanist, automatically gets the evil label slapped on him by some. As Tim said, Stacy Jones is a haunted survivor whose son was possessed and had to undergo an exorcism. Dave Jones left his Demon Brothers days behind him, but as the owner of Para X has dealt with the evil that comes with the job. I've been accused of consorting with the devil because I'm a witch and have been told once or twice that I'm going to burn in hell for my pagan beliefs. And then there's Tim. What can I say?
What can you
true evil right there.
That posted on Facebook recently. I call it his coming out of the broom closet photo. Holding his Book of Shadows with the big fat pentagram on the cover did raise a few eyebrows. And then, of course, there's the entity Cassius, who he channeled in during our last Halloween seance and the year before, and some felt that was kind of demonic as well. Well, that being said, we're in for a lively evening, so let's start off with a question for our guests. We're taught that good and evil go hand in hand. Without dark, there is no light. So, Corvus, do you believe that everyone has evil in them to some degree as well as good?
Well, that's very subjective to what we consider good and evil and where it stems from. I tried to cover that a little bit in the book I, Lucifer that just came out through Schiffer, but it's very subjective to your individual worldview on where you think evil derives from and how you label it. I mean, there's obviously evil acts that individuals can do to one another. Case in point, in my own hometown, just a week ago, a little girl was beaten to death and, cut up with a hacksaw. It's on the international, Yahoo News and everything. That's clearly an evil act, but, as far as a true devil or something that's the cause of it, that's very subjective to whatever your personal religious beliefs are or aren't if you're an atheist or a Satanist.
Mm-hmm. Well, as a Satanist, I would imagine that you get their fingers pointed at you quite a bit.
I get misconstrued as a devil worshiper by people that are ignorant and never give me a chance to explain myself and my beliefs. It's more of a curiosity factor from some people. I wouldn't say that I've been harassed any more than any other pagan or Satanist that I personally know.
Good point, because we do get harassed. Dave, what do you think? Has everybody got a little evil in them?
Yeah, I think so. The whole thing about it is, I guess, I'm much like Corvus, is how you define evil to begin with. There's 3 or 4 different aspects of it. There's if you go to a moral absolute, if you will, is that everything is based on a single premise of good and evil, whether you believe it or not. And then you go, which I'm more toward the moral relativism side of things. That is somewhat relative to what you think is evil, what happens to show up as evil, versus how you were trained, I guess, as you were growing up, how your culture is. Because obviously some things in this culture are considered evil with quotes, and in other cultures not. So I think, there's a little bit of evil in all of us, and I guess maybe it's just in my very uneducated opinion, by the way, is that it's based on how much we let it out, how much we suppress it with our own moral code or ethics or whatever, versus just allowing acts like that we might consider evil to portray themselves. So yeah, I think we do.
Oh, it's just a follow-up thought that, you kind of have to look yourself in the mirror and see if it's a collective whole that created evil, or is it an outside force? It's kind of subjective, like I said earlier, but we have to look at it, is it evil perpetrated by man, or is it something else entirely? And I think that's pretty much what the heart of this show is going to be about, if I'm not mistaken.
Good point, because it's not just evil in one aspect. As Tim said before, it could be a person, it could be a thing, it could be an idea. I mean, some people think spiders are evil, or clowns are evil, or even cats are evil, for example.
Or even sisters.
As opposed to evil brothers and things like that. So, yeah, when you talk about evil, it's a very wide scope.
But here's the thing, guys. When we talk about the nature of evil, and this is something that I bring up with my students, and I bring up with clergy, and I bring up with other spiritualists, and yes, I do have friends within the craft, Marla. But here's the thing. Is it necessarily something that's external? Is evil not perhaps intrinsic in each one of us? And that somehow, some way, our discipline throughout the ages, through our nurturing process, keeps it at bay. However, it's just there on the edge, waiting to come out, may only be a mirror of our true nature. Because as a spiritualist, we believe that thoughts are things. And if that's the case, then our thoughts, and they may be negative, they may be evil in nature, could we not be projecting them, as in the case of poltergeist, human origin poltergeist, which means that the phenomena originates with a human, not a spirit. So what do you guys think about that?
Good point. I don't know.
Yes.
You got me on that one, because, I mean, again, it's such a broad scope of ideas about what evil is in general, how it's perceived and how it's presented.
Right. I don't think you can fit, the origin of evil itself in a nice little box. We have physical evil, moral evil. It comes in all different tints and hues. It depends on how we're choosing to define it. I mean, it's such a broad topic that you kind of have to define it, but you almost can't.
Well, Tim actually went digging. He did some homework, and he came up with some definitions of evil. What'd you get, Tim?
Well, I went up and snuck up on the back porch of Funkin' Wagnall's house, and I found these definitions laying in a mason jar of what evil is. And evil, when you look it up, and this is something, all these definitions are found readily in just about every dictionary that I looked at, come to this point. 1, morally bad. 2, it is harmful. 3, it causes misfortune. 4, it's malicious. 5, it's devilish, which means it's connected to the devil, demons, or some other powerful, destructive, non-tangible entities. And 6, it's very disagreeable or unpleasant, such as in, Marla, you must wash your feet because your toes smell. And no, they don't. They really don't, people. But I'm just using that as an example. Now, I have to bring this up. All of these definitions seem to me that, again, the state that what we call evil may be really in the eye of the beholder, or at least in the social morals of a culture. Now, let me ask you guys this, and Dave has been silent, so we're going to go with him first. So, Dave, do you feel that there's a universal component in the world today? Is there something that when we start looking at religions, and you're a paranormal investigator and you're a guy that's interviewed a lot of people, do you feel that there is some small segment that seems to be accepted by everyone in the definition of what evil truly is?
Yes, I think that when you talk about demons or the demonic, yes. I think that virtually all the paranormal field would indicate that demons are evil. That's an evil intent. Whenever you mention the word demon, demonic, that's what you come up with is evil. Nobody considers, in my estimation, that demons are good, or they are of a moral high ground. So I think in that respect, demons are almost universally accepted as being evil without any admixture of good attached to them.
Well, I think that there again we're going back to a narrow margin on my behalf. But if you're looking at it as a historian, you're definitely right for a collective worldview when it comes to the general masses would say that demons are evil, period, end of story. But you also have to consider the fact that Scripture talks about them being fallen angels, and yet at the same time saying that everyone and everything is capable of being forgiven and reverting to something. So is that set in stone even for the fallen? Since I don't prescribe to that particular belief, I kind of want to put it out there for those who might.
But now, Corvus, before we go on, let me ask you this. I've read in many places, and I've had a lot of people come up to me and say, listen, there's no such thing as demons. There's no such thing as fallen angels. These were all angels. These are entities that may have chose the wrong side according to the Bible. However, the Bible has been written by man, right, and we all accept that fact. Could it not be just the opposite? Could it not be, well, the best way I'm going to say it is, couldn't it be bad press by the controlling religion, by religion, by, let's say, Catholicism, Christianity, saying that, these entities are bad,
when in fact they're either neutral or reflections of what we consider the angelic?
I think that's highly possible, as far as everything can be misconstrued, everything can be twisted by the winner of the war, so to speak. I mean, right. We look at the Crusades. For 100 years, Muslims and Christians killed each other, and, well, they still are, to be honest. And they both point at each other saying, that one's evil. If you really split away all the non-common threads, those two belief systems are closer in nature than almost any other major religion in the world, of having monotheism, a devil, demons, angels, fallen angels like the Iblis, and things like that. So how do you define it, especially when it comes down to something so close to each other? What's the nature of evil?
But however, when we look at that nature, or the nature of evil in that context, we're looking at it through something that may have, well, the Old Testament, it was a commonality, it was something that both religions share.
Right.
And yet, as time went on, it split and it morphed and it evolved. My God, look at the two Christian monk sects that were just beating each other over the head with brooms in Jerusalem. Or come on, this is getting ridiculous. I mean, Christians are battling Christians now.
Right.
Now you tell me. I'm going to tell you something, Corvus. I'd sit and drink with you as a Satanist, that everybody looks at and says, "Oh my God." Corvus is inherently evil because of what he is, rather than go and sit with these Christians that are beating each other to death with brooms. Come on, this is ridiculous. Right. This is the world that we live in. And yet the concept of evil that is coming down the pike at us is that, one side is against the other side, and one side is total balance, the other side is anti-balance or the negative, and that's totally wrong. And I'm getting tired of that stuff. And I got Christian friends that won't talk to me because of those views. Now, to me, that non-dialogue is a concept of evil.
Mm-hmm. I think so. I mean, what we do to each other, person to person, is truly evil. I don't think it needs an outside source. I think people are just that way, but it's by choice. And I think that the Bible and any other, Quran or anything like that is simply a book of moral stories to get people to understand how not to be that way to each other, and we just, throw it out the window.
Exactly.
While pretending to pay it lip service every Sunday or, whatever your religion calls for you to do.
Exactly.
But I mean... Okay,
Corvus, last week I had Bill Bean on, and when I first met Bill was, I would say, the uber Christian. Okay. I mean, this is a big dude. He's muscular. He preaches the good word. He believes in it. He believes in that Bible with all his heart. Now, all of a sudden, he's had a change. He's looked at the world differently, and he sees how Christianity has totally been, the best way, it's perverted, it's been morphed, it's been taken over by so many people out there and has been changed to meet the controlling needs of a sect or man. And that, to me, was amazing. And for him now to say, I'm going to be honest with you, these are the evil people who once he believed were his savior.
Well, Anne Rice, the author Anne Rice, Interview with the Vampire, did exactly the same thing. She went straight into kind of Born Again, and she was just as Christian as possible. And a couple years later, she turned around and did a Bill Bean, and she is now denouncing them.
Well, at least that means the return to better vampire stories than Twilight.
Yes,
that's one way to look at it, Corvus. The thing about a moral code, of course, some folks, and this is no smack at those that have a faith-based culture that they live by. By no means. If you have a faith that you live by, wonderful. Or if you have a moral code that you follow, terrific. And I think all of us do to one way or the other, whether it's inscribed on a tablet or it's on our hearts or on our minds. We all have a moral code, and it's a sliding scale, depending on where we are. Here's one, though, and I want to throw this out to folks. A simple moral code is that whatever you consider evil that is done to you, you should also consider evil if you do the same thing to somebody else. And that's one of the disconnects that happens to us today. Somebody can do something to us, and we get mad. That was evil. They did something bad to me. That was evil stuff. He's evil. He did something bad to me. And then we turn around and do it to them, and we think we have somehow a righteous kind of an energy behind us. Like, I did it back to them, so it's good. They do it to me, it's bad. And to me, that's the worst kind of a contortionist view of evil and good that I've ever seen. And we all do it to one degree or another. But if we could ever get into the point where we can have a moral code to where, all right, if you do it to me and I think it's evil, then that by its very nature would tell me I should not do that to anybody else. To put it biblically, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Yes, the golden rule. But, to me, that is the biggest way of going against our own moral ethic, is that we define evil based on how we feel when it's done to us. And I think that's wrong sometimes.
I think it's a simple matter of ignorance and hypocrisy, and not so much that things are so twisted out of balance. I mean, it's a matter of using common sense. If somebody's mean to you and you don't like it, why would you perpetrate it on someone else?
Well, and
I was on Lexi's the Lexi show on the BET, and I put the YouTube video up, and I'm getting all sorts of comments from her fans saying, well, why did this good Christian lady put this Satanist on her show and want to hear his side of the story? And I tried to explain to him, well, she's not taking my side. She just wants to have people understand what different religions are all about, so there's no hate. And
well, exactly. And now,
it's really sad.
Go on. Satan, Corvus, people right now are listening in going, he's a Satanist. Dear Lord, I've got to go clutch my rosary and my Bible, and I have to go and kneel in the general direction of Jerusalem. I can't believe that they have him on. For everybody out there, Corvus, tell everybody that right up front what Satanism basically is and its connection to the demonic kingdom.
Okay, well, first of all, we don't believe that there is a demonic kingdom, period. It's a fancy story that other people have told each other to get people to do what they want them to by fear of eternal suffering and punishment, when we don't believe there's an afterlife. Whatever punishments you reap, you do it because it's simple cause and effect. There's consequences for stupid actions, or there should be. As far as what Satanism truly is, it's all about perfecting the self, and you have to be accountable for your actions, and we kind of like the Addams Family sort of trappings to go with our atheism.
Well, this is something, again, that they don't realize. And if now, what is... now, you guys have a code of conduct, and for the life of me, I can't remember it right now, and I've read it a couple times. What's that called? It's your moral code of conduct.
We have actually multiple aspects of it. There's the satanic statements, the satanic sins, and the 11 rules of the earth. And the 11 rules of the earth are probably the most obvious that are like the 10 Commandments, if I can say something like that. They're basically a no-brainer, common-sense approach to life by realistic human beings. Like, don't give opinions or advice unless you're asked. When in another's lair, show them respect or don't go there. I don't see those rules of Satanism to be evil.
I really don't. The only one that I questioned, and we've talked about this before, is there is one that if someone should, and just generally I'm going to paraphrase it, someone goes on your land, you ask him not to do it, he keeps doing it, kill him. And what is that? What, and because people are actually... During the show right now, I've already gotten 2 PMs about this. They've actually gone on the Church of Satan website, and that's what they're asking me about. Okay, so could you explain that for them?
The exact statement is, when walking in open territory, bother no one. If someone bothers you, ask him to stop. If he does not stop, destroy him. Well, I explained this to Lexi during the interview, too. When she says destroy them, what does that mean? And she said, does that mean you killed him? And I said, no, there's multiple ways of destroying someone. And we're not a religion of the stupid, and killing someone would, unless it's justifiable homicide in the law of the land, would be stupid, and you would go to jail. That's not very self-serving. What that actually means is you find ways to cause harm to them, like you ruin their reputation, you turn them in for drinking on the job, find creative ways to even the score. But first of all, it says, bother no one, ask them to stop. I mean, that's kind of counterproductive in thinking, to do something horribly, off that track. In my opinion, anyway. I mean, Anton LaVey was a very angry and vehement spokesperson against turning the other cheek. He was a proponent of self-defense and firearms and all that, but he wanted his followers to be responsible human beings as well.
What really, I guess, opens my eyes a little bit is, okay, you just said Anton LaVey was really someone who believed in a strong defense. A good defense is a strong offense, and yet Christians turn around and bash that religion. But yet, are they not? Especially, you've got white Christian supremacists out there running around, these militia groups who believe in God first, country second, doing the exact same thing. And yet, the public looks at them as perfectly okay, perfectly within balance. Yet the public looks at the Satanist religion, and other religions for that matter, as being abnormal. What would you say to someone who says, well, Corvus, I think you're wrong because you believe in defending yourself? What would you say to that person?
How is that any different than the Christian that goes off to war to defend their country?
I couldn't come back with that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I couldn't come back with anything like that. Dave, let me ask you this.
Sure.
I mean, you come from the Bible Belt, and and I won't ask you growing up because you're older than dirt like me.
I don't think I can remember back that far anyway, but go ahead.
No, neither can I anymore.
Yeah.
But in recent years, and you have a lot of friends who are really, we're dyed-in-the-wool Christians.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to them if they actually knew that you had friends like Corvus Nocturnum and people, and that you would actually invite Corvus to your house to break bread with you?
Oh, that's easy, and it's happened before, and not Corvus, obviously. Although I would claim Corvus anywhere, anytime. Corvus, you can.
Thank you.
But anyway, it's happened before, and I've had some of my friends who are on the faith-based side of things ask me, so how can you do this stuff? How can you associate with people that believe in demons and are Satanists and all this kind of thing? And I said, well, I'm in good company. Jesus did it too. and they give me this look
True.
like, what?
True.
And I said, read the New Testament and you'll see it, is that he was, as a matter of fact, one of the huge criticisms of Christ in the Bible is that he was hanging out with sinners. And not to say that these people are, but the point being is that Jesus somewhat eschewed the religious people. He kind of stayed away from them. As a matter of fact, he found quite a bit of fault with what they were doing. And he went to the ones who were not in the religious order. The lady who was about to be stoned, the prostitute, they caught her in adultery, got ready to stone her, and he looks at them and says, he who's without sin cast the first stone. And they one by one dropped their stones and walked away. When they were confronted with the moral absolutism in this case, they couldn't respond to it. So I tell them, I said, I'm in good company. And the whole issue of the evangelical movement, and again, no disrespect to any folks out there, please, but the whole issue with the evangelical movement is that when they, and not all, but many, will go out to try to win people to that particular religion, missions or whatever it is. And they'll go out and visit, say, oh, come to church, we'd like for you to come to church, come to know our God, and so on. And then they say, you know what, okay, I will. And then they start with the rules. Okay, first of all, you got to dress this way, you got to talk this way, you got to look this way, you got to act this way, you got to come this time, that time, this particular date, this particular time, blah, 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 blah. Now, come visit us. And instantly they're trying to change them, if you will, into their own likeness before they're even allowed in. And Jesus did the reverse. He went to where they were. He broke bread with them. He was visiting with people that the religious people of that time wouldn't be caught dead with. Jesus was there. Now, that's how I answer them. And I tell them that, and they don't like hearing this sometimes, but I would say some of the people that have been the best to me personally have been the people who are not the religious people. Some of the ones who have been the most hateful toward me have been the religious people. So given that, make up your own mind. And that's how I answer it.
I've got a question from chat, but before I get to it, I just want everybody to know that you're welcome to send us a private message if you have a question or a comment. And also, you can call in at 888-99-PARA-X. I'd rather somebody call in than sit there with their hand up in the air, bouncing up and down, waiting for us to recognize them, right? Right.
Usually that means that one of us has to go to the bathroom when that happens.
Okay, well, not right at the moment.
That's what commercials are for, by the way.
That's exactly right. All right, so the question comes in from Kathy in the chat room, And she said, lots of people, and this is for Corvus, I think, or, you guys have your opinions too. Lots of people want to know, is there a difference between Satan and the devil?
Good
Well,
question.
I like that one. That should clear up a lot of stuff.
Lucifer talking about it, and I have to say that, yes, they were two separate deities or demonic beings when you're talking about the different angels that fell. It's very, very difficult to pin that down because there were so many different sects of Christianity during the early days when the Bible was being written and translated that certain groups said, well, Satan is the devil. Others said that, the devil was his name later, that he changed. And, you have multiple names for the devil to this day that you'll find in lists like Belial and Beelzebub and stuff like that. And those are actually individual names of the fallen angels that later produced the Nephilim and other creatures. So, it's very tough to say, well, this group says that's the case and others are different, because it's a rather narrow part of history that said it was different or not. I think it's just a general perception, and people have just assumed that, well, all those different names are the same central character.
Well, just got a question, another one in chat. Then who is Lucifer?
Lucifer was, in my opinion, the original. He was the light bringer. That's what his name translates into. He was basically the fallen bright star, if you're going by the strictest sense of the earliest stories of the fall of the angel that became the devil. So I believe, from my research anyway, that it just became different facets and aspects of his personality that they splintered off and had to give him minions and followers, just like God had, all of his angels that didn't rebel, so that there would be an equal balance in this supposed war of good versus evil. Okay.
Got another question from the chat room. Is there a difference between a Satanist and satanic worship?
Oh, there's worlds of difference. First of all, Satanists, obviously, from the Church of Satan, Anton LaVey, don't believe there is a devil, that it's merely an archetype only. Therefore, how could you worship something that doesn't exist? Which is totally backwards from a devil worshiper a la the media or movies in fiction, where they see the devil as the Christian symbol of evil and just pray to it as an inverted Christian.
Well, that's what we say in paganism. We don't believe in the devil either. And, how do we worship them? Yeah, we're supposed to be the devil's spawn and we're supposed to do the devil's bidding and all that. Same kind of difference, But everybody has to put, I think everybody needs to put a name on evil.
I think we have to identify what it is we're talking about to a certain extent, but those kind of labels and stereotypes box individuals in too.
Well, and it paints people in lights that they don't deserve. Whenever we call something satanic, that's somewhat let me rephrase that. Whenever we use the term satanic towards something that we are trying to link as a devilish thing, we show our ignorance. From a Satan standpoint, or satanic or Satanist standpoint, if you will, and of course Corvus can talk to this much better than I can, is that it has nothing to do with worshiping evil. It's not like that, but we've put that title to it. So when we say satanic, it has the connotation that we're talking about something demonic and evil. Right. When in actuality, that's not. It's more of a, I guess, a humanist viewpoint more than it is a religious viewpoint. If I'm not butchering it too bad, Corvus.
No, you're fine. You're basically paraphrasing what I wrote about the first Black Mass in the 1500s. There was a bishop, I can't pronounce the name, but he was tried around 1500 for performing the Devil's Mass and orgies. I think it was 1647, because he was rebelling and quite crazy. He got the nuns together to do orgies and things like that, and of course that trickled down to today's era, that if somebody is the opposite of what you like, you're going to paint them as something as heinous as possible to make them the villain.
Yeah.
Exactly. And this is something that I see over and over again. In the Appalachians in the late 1800s, some areas believed that singing was evil. If you sang, even hummed, you were going straight to hell. There are other cultures that believe that technology is inherently evil and thus is a corrupter of a pure society, such as the traditionalist Amish, not to be compared or not to be confused with the followers of Joseph Menon or the Mennonites, who go and live a simple life but embrace technology. So, I mean, I believe that a lot of this, the quote-unquote name or moniker evil, is actually a tool in which the controlling, who's ever in control at that time, it uses it to go and squash anything that they believe is rebellious in nature. Thus, you hear about children. He's going through the terrible twos. Terrible. That's a terrible thing to say. It's an evil thing to say about a little kid in that developmental stage. My teenager is evil, inherently evil. How can you say that when, they're not fully mentally developed yet at that time? So again, I believe that the monikers actually come from control, and it also comes from a level of idiocy or someone who does not understand or know everything that's going on. I mean, you see in our society today, you see a white bald guy, a big white bald guy in a black leather jacket. You've got little old ladies that will cross away from you because their perception is that that person is inherently evil. They fear that person. What they don't realize is that person could be a social worker. That person could be a policeman. That person could be any number of things that are of positive nature. So they're the victors always go in the history. They also declare what is evil and what is not. Let's face it. Every time some warlord conquered a nation in Europe back in the Dark Ages, they imposed their religion upon the populace. So now, all of a sudden, what was positive is turned upside down as negative. So a lot of this is all in control. It's just a huge control issue. Now, when we start talking about control issues, what's going on with the entire idea that entities can be evil, energy can be evil? In my experience, energy is neither positive or negative. It's just energy. It is corrupted by the people around them. What do you guys think about that?
Wow. Go ahead, Marla. I'm sorry.
I'm good. I should go to a party. I can really kill a party in 2 minutes, can't I?
Oh, you really can, and I'm sorry. I got distracted by a really good question in chat, so I'll let you guys handle it, and let me sort this out.
Yeah, well, the thing about it is that, Sandy from Nebraska is hitting at it somewhat. What is evil? If it's because we're using archetypes for it, we're using symbols for it, we're using names for it, we're using connotations for it. So what is it exactly? And her point of it is that is it an energy that is something apart from humankind? Is it an entity in and of itself that affects us and makes us do bad things, or at least tempts us to do bad things? Is it an energy apart from man, or apart from humankind, or apart from life itself? If I'm stating that right, Sandy, is evil an energy, and is its counterpart love? Is love something that is an energy that is out there, that is not dependent upon humankind to exercise it to make it exist? What is evil and what is, I guess that's what the question is that what actually is it? If we're just trying to form pictures of it or trying to cast it upon someone else, does it exist? Is it something tangible, or is it just some type of a definition that we have for something that happens that we don't like?
I would have to go with the last part, because when you really strip it down, I mean, if any of you read The Dark Side of Christian History by Ellerby, she's talking about how the church was threatened by what they called heresy of the Cathars and destroyed them utterly when they weren't much different than like the Knights Templar. Mm-hmm. Just because they were an opposing version and had their own slant on even Christianity from a Christ perspective, they were stamped out to the person, thousands of them. So, I mean, evil is the actions, the tangible, visible result.
Yeah, I like that, Corvus. I really like that. Here's a favorite story of mine. I love this, and pardon me, folks, for I'm just trying to...
Dave, don't tell that story about Gettysburg 2 years ago.
No, I promise I'll keep that one to myself.
Okay, thank you.
Because that was definitely evil, man. If there was if there's anything evil, that was evil.
It was an evil night, yes, and St. Jameson is all to blame for that one.
Yes, indeed. Old Farmer is out at his farm, and he wakes up one morning, and there's this horse that's out in one of his fields. It's not his. It's out there. So the farmer waits for somebody to claim it. It doesn't happen. So he thinks, well, okay, a horse is out here. I'm going to have it till my field for me. So he puts a plow on it. His neighbor walks by and says, hey, you got a horse that showed up. That's a good thing. And the farmer said, well, let's wait and see. Later on that day, his teenage son jumps on the back of the horse to ride it, falls off, the son breaks his leg. So they come up and said, hey, your son broke his leg, that's a bad thing. He said, well, let's wait and see. So before too long, they were having the draft for the war, and his son had a broken leg, so he couldn't go into war. So they said, hey, he didn't have to go to war, that's a good thing. And the farmer said, well, let's wait and see. In essence, what would appear to be evil may have a good outcome. And vice versa. What may be good may have an evil outcome.
It's perspective.
Perspective. And I love what you said, Corvus, when you said it's the act, and the act that comes from an intent may be the best definition of evil that there is. Whether there is an evil force out there that is independent of our actions, I really struggle with. But I do know that there are evil acts that are perpetrated by people who do it with the purpose of harming someone else or causing chaos or discord or whatever, with the complete intent of hurting somebody. Yeah, that's a damn evil act.
Right. But it's independent from any external force. Those are choices people make.
Indeed.
But people blame the external forces for their own actions.
Because people will not take responsibility for their actions.
And that's evil.
You guys have just proven in a nutshell why Anton LaVey formed the Church of Satan, because he was rubbing people's nose in those very facts.
Yeah. Got another question. This is just mine, and this is just deep thoughts from Dave until John gets here and clears it all up. One of the Christian tenets, and I'm quite sure in many of the other religious thought, is that what you think is evil. Well, let's say, for example, that you think something, and again, we're using the moral ethic of the time, something that is generally understood to be an evil act, and you're thinking it, but you don't do it. Is that evil? If you don't act out what you're thinking, or is just the thought itself evil?
So are they saying that we're not supposed to have our human carnal wants and desires, even if others might misconstrue them?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Is that essentially, from the biblical perspective, even the thoughts and intents of the heart are judged by God. So in essence, God can see your thoughts and the intent of your heart. And so therefore, if your thoughts are on evil continuously, as the Bible said, it was kind of a denunciation of somebody who said his thoughts were toward evil continually, that even our thoughts, if they sneak in with something that is, and just to put it in perspective, a married guy walks down the street with his wife, and all of a sudden the hot young babe comes walking up the sidewalk, and he gives a sideward glance at her, and suddenly it rushes into his mind, hey, and then all of a sudden he just blanks, oh, no, I can't do that, I'm married. Okay.
Bad Tim, bad.
Yeah, bad Tim, bad. Now, the thing is that was that momentary lapse that drove us back to, and I don't mean this in a bad way, carnal instinct. Was that an expression of evil? But the fact that we didn't act on it, was that just a thought that ran through our head and that's it? And I'm more toward the latter. Is that just a thought that ran through our head? We didn't act upon it. So therefore, I wouldn't consider that evil, but many would. Is that even if you had the thought of it, it's evil.
But again, this goes right, but this goes back to the control aspect that is so enforced by so many out there. Let's face it, do as I say, not as I do. That's what's coming out of modern religion today, and has been coming out of modern religion since the great purges here in the U.S. in the 1600s. I mean, this is ridiculous. How many times are we seeing Jimmy Swaggart up there crying to his congregation because he's got hookers in his hotel room, but he's not touching them, but he's touching something else. So, I mean, what is evil? What is that? Jimmy Carter goes into Playboy and says, "I've sinned. I've lusted after women in my mind." I mean, what is evil? This is not evil. This is a natural thing. This is instinctive. This is something that they refuse to go. But of course, I mean, we can go and push this even further. Is all these people that are out there claiming that evolution did not happen, that man coexisted with dinosaurs? Give me a break here, guys. I mean, these are things that are myopic in scope. And the beliefs, they turn around, most of them will turn around and will destroy a pagan or a Wiccan. Or a couple years ago, we had somebody drive through a pentagram that was set up on somebody's lawn because they said it is inherently evil, and we will go. And if this is up during the Lord's birthday, the end of the world will come. This is what's taught by these people. And I'm going to tell you something else before we go to break, because we've only got 4 minutes to go, guys. What do you think about that idiot that was running around this whole year saying it was going to be the end of the world, and people were putting their life savings into his ministry? You want to know what's evil? That guy is walking around and not in jail. He duped people through control and use of dogma. That is not only repulsive. If there's something evil that walks this world, it's that man right there. And as far as I'm concerned, I can't wait for karma to come back and bite him in the ass.
And it will.
It will.
Yeah, well, sure it will. And, again, that's the point that we made. As a matter of fact, I did this as part of a show we were doing on Toss-Up. We're talking about that. Is that inherently the act that he did affected people in a negative way. It caused some people who were devout to him to possibly sell all their goods or to get rid of all their 401k or whatever it was, and they were sitting there waiting for the end of the world. It didn't happen. All right. To me, that was an evil act on his part because he caused some people harm in what he did. Now, certainly, he won't look at it that way. He said, I'm a devout religious man, and I screwed up. So it wasn't evil.
In other words, Dave, Christians are not perfect, but they're forgiven. Thus, that means that I can go out, I can kill some little kid, dismember and eat that little child, and yet on my deathbed give a full and truly believable act of contrition. Thus, I will go to heaven.
Well, see that was it's what they think. Here's the funny part. I don't want to make it humorous, but here's the funny part. It was almost a race to the finish line. Now, if you do that and you go out and you really, really you play the field, you do every nasty, ugly thing you can possibly think of. I mean, you run right at evil and you just dive into it head first, okay? And then all of a sudden, you get terminal illness. And you're getting close to your deathbed, like you said. All right, you make a confession. You accept this deity for whatever it is. Christ is your Savior or whatever. And everything's all cool. All right, you're all done. You clear everything up. Now, if you were to die of a heart attack before you did that, you're toast. Now, so the point gets down to is that did you make the proper statement at the proper time? If you did it before you crossed the finish line, cool. If you fell down before you crossed the finish line, it's hell. Now, and then to reverse that, is that to go back to the point of those who have made this profession of faith, and then they go out and do real nasty, ugly, terrible, rotten things. Well, they're covered. Now, based on the biblical concept of the sacrificial lamb back in the Old Testament, is that it's the connotation of scapegoat. Is that they put in the Old Testament, they put the symbolic sins of the people on the animal and then released it into the wild. In essence,
I read, they chucked it over a cliff and watched it bounce to a painful death at the bottom.
Yeah, that's right. And
isn't that evil to the poor goat?
Yeah, but see, that was scapegoat. That's what it was. We're going to put our sins on this animal. We're going to send it off into its oblivion, and so that takes care of us. And of course, that was the symbology of Christ dying on the cross for the sins of the world. Okay, and again, not demeaning that by any sense for those who put a lot of faith in the cleansing of sin by Christ's act on the cross. But I guess what my point is that from that point to where we now, those who accept that fact, then turn around and start condemning somebody else for doing what they formerly did, is absolute abomination. You point at them and say, "Oh, you're a rotten, ugly, nasty sinner." That's not what Christ did. He went to them and tried to fix things. So I guess my point is that if Christians are truly Christians, or those who have a faith-based culture, would truly be those who would live that lifestyle, and they fully embraced it, there would not be the hatred that issues out of the mouth of them. It would be more of a redemption rather than a condemnation.
I have to agree. And Dave, we're at that half hour, or I should say the hour break. And everyone, you're listening to the Reverend Witt Show here on Para-X with the illuminating Dave Jones, the mysterious Marla Brooks, the cantankerous and always fun Corvus Nocturnum. And after the break, hopefully we shall have Uncle Johnny Zaffis. Hopefully Stacy Jones will be out of the academy early enough to give us a call in. So stay tuned, everyone, and sit back and enjoy the show.